Today we have some new voices weighing in on the old sexy ladies in comics debate. This is an age-old and ongoing discussion where some people feel that these types of characters cause harm by objectifying women, while others feel that these sexy female characters are, in actuality, totally badass.
I love the way my body's moving to the beat. I love the way you're slowly getting close to me.
So there I was, just innocently perusing the Facebook. I know, I'm kind of a boomer, when I came across a post by an acquaintance of mine disparaging creators who illustrate sexy ladies or feature them heavily in their comics. This is pretty common and it always has been. I'm not going to name this guy. In fact, for this video, we're just gonna call him Fred, but I do want to give some background on him and a little bit of context to help us better understand where he's coming from and what exactly his perspective is.
Fred is a published artist and writer and a New York Times best-selling author, so he has some real credentials in the field. And he says, maybe I'm just having a bad week, but if your comic or art or promo for your comic, especially Kickstarter, and okay, I'm gonna just stop it here for a second because I actually think this first half sentence kind of gives away the game, because I had an experience with Fred in the past that I think will give us some excellent context and understanding of where Fred is coming from. Back in the day, Mile High Comics used to host these really cool events in their massive warehouse comic shop. And I was invited a few times, and Fred was at one of these events. Fred has his own indie comic series, and at this show, it was getting no love. No one was buying anything, not his comics, not his art. They were not interested. Upon seeing this, Fred took it upon himself to lash out at the creators around him. Why? Was it because they were making sales and he wasn't? No, according to Fred, it was because they were selling fan art. And actually, he was just really worried about the copyright infringement. And instead of taking a look at his own comic and trying to figure out how he could make it better or more appealing to these audiences, he decided to focus his time on tearing down the creators around him. So now when I see him being upset that his competitors on Kickstarter feature sexy ladies in their comics, it's hard to imagine that this guy is really like trying to defend women and not just, finding ways to cope with the fact that his stuff just isn't that popular. He continues, if your art is especially emphasizing breasts, I'm sick of seeing it, especially when it's drawn by a man. Maybe focus on your character's other attributes. I'm sick of seeing it, and it's kind of creepy and at least problematic, maybe even misogynistic, maybe even gives people a bad view of women, especially as objects.
In my personal opinion, not all sexy lady art is made the same, and I will say that many of us have a deep appreciation for not only the female form, but the feminine spirit. And we are driven to create beautiful, powerful, sexy female characters.
Especially for those of us who came up as and continue to be genuine fans of these types of characters.
To boil that all down to men are gross and shouldn't draw boobs is a disingenuous and frankly unintelligent oversimplification of the issue. And really what Fred's doing here is called public shaming, an attempt to exert social pressure on the people around him, literally to shame other adults for their personal tastes in comic book art. Adults enjoying mature content while bothering absolutely no one is far from quote unquote problematic and sits much more comfortably in the realm of it's none of your business.
And as someone who literally travels around the country selling this type of art, I've spent the past 5 years or so face to face with a customer base that loves erotic art and sexy pinup girls. And they're pretty evenly split between male and female customers. I think actually we might have a little more on the female side. And one thing I really appreciate about our customers is how mature they are. The type of people who have no problem walking up to a booth full of sexy pinup girls in public surrounded by thousands of strangers, are not the sophomoric idiots who giggle and point when they see anything remotely sexual. And we get a lot of that. People walk by our booth and laugh, or make snide comments, or mean-spirited jokes as they pass by, and this is completely normal. Every show we do, we get people like that. Sometimes a group of young guys will come up to the table and one of them wants to buy some stuff, but all the other guys will be giggling and pointing and being like,
"Oh man, you should get that one. It has boobs in it."
And you know why people get nervous around this type of art and start acting foolish? Aside from being incredibly immature, they feel judged by the people around them. There are people like Fred out there who will publicly shame them if they show interest in our dirty artwork.
And I do personally feel that Fred's motivation here, and it might not even be conscious, but I think this is little more than a blatant attempt to shame the customers of his perceived competitors. You know, the comic artists finding more success than him. Are there gross dudes out there with zero respect for themselves or the people around them who are specifically interested in consuming artwork that demeans and devalues women? Absolutely, I'm sure that there are, and it is a massive shame. But that is not what this genre is about. We are here to celebrate and empower and adore.
And now, on a completely unrelated note, here are some artists I dig. Now, is it crazy to suggest that actually a lot of women prefer sexy female characters, much like a lot of guys prefer monstrous, jacked male characters? Because I honestly see a whole lot of that.
Personally, when I draw sexy ladies, my intent is always to create something badass. I want to portray beauty and power, and I want it all to be dripping with sex appeal, because I think that's effing cool.
Now let's check out some of the responses to Fred's post. When someone suggested that sexy sells, we got this gem.
Sex sells. Yeah, well, so does heroin. Doesn't make it good for society.
Which actually I think is a great point, because I have noticed when I sell my comic books to people, they inevitably turn into homeless zombies. Here's a response claiming these kinds of comics send misogynistic messages to young boys, which cause them to view and treat women and girls in derogatory ways. But we actually have a ton of science on this, and as it turns out, young boys do not develop their views on women from comic books. No one does. Young boys develop their views on women based on the examples set by their mothers and the women and girls they grow up around. They develop their understanding of how to treat women based on how they see their fathers and the men they look up to treat women. Let's be clear, far too many women have been hurt by men in completely disgusting and inexcusable ways. But I just have to point out, though, that none of that is the fault of comic books. To suggest it is overlooks the real problems in society. It's like falsely accusing someone of a crime. Not only are you convicting the innocent, you're letting the guilty off the hook. I'm trying to give everyone the benefit of doubt here, but this next response is pretty unhinged. I guess she's trying to say men who draw sexy ladies also assault them in the worst ways imaginable, which is obviously so untrue, it's hardly worth taking seriously. But I just have to say, this is the kind of stuff I deal with. I do my best to illustrate beautiful, sexy women, and I get randos unironically accusing me of being the absolute scum of society. It's actually very dumb. And so she says,
Women aren't mating machines. After all these years, men should have learned to control their urges.
the urge to create a badass female character or make comics or draw stuff?
Your thought process is problematic. Men who think women are just here to make babies are the same men who can't take no for an answer.
And how is this all linked back to us artists who draw sexy ladies? Are you saying that we can't take no for an answer? Is that what you're saying?
They're the same men who will abuse a woman, the same men who will unalive a woman.
I gotta say, this is a pretty insane leap right here.
Believe it or not, we have more to offer than our bodies. We're not dumb bimbos that are just on earth to please men.
I really resent the notion that sexiness is just here to please men. I'm pretty sure that women also enjoy a little sex appeal just as much as the next person. And I realize one thing that bothers me about this point of view is when you make a character sexy, it doesn't take away from her other attributes. It doesn't mean she doesn't have a great backstory or a sick power set. They are the ones claiming sexy characters are just here to quote unquote make babies. It's true in the real world too. Just because a woman is sexy doesn't mean she isn't also highly intelligent, capable, and full of talent, which makes me really wonder what kind of point these people are trying to make. And since this random Fred attack has been one long character assassination of men who feature sexy ladies in their Kickstarter comics, let's take a look at the most successful creators to fit that bill. Dan Mendoza and Brian Pulido, two guys I know personally who I can't help but notice are both married to some straight up boss ladies. I mean, try having a conversation with either of these women and you will be faced with highly intelligent and skillful forces to be reckoned with, neither of whom would put up with even a modicum of misogyny. So Fred got a little attention off of this, so he decided to go and do some confirmation bias style research on Wikipedia, where he learned about the male gaze and again tried to link violent crime to people drawing sexy ladies in comic books. So let me just put it like this. Every time there's a shooting, politicians scramble to blame it on the rap music and the violent video games. But the reality is, some people are terrible and they want to hurt others. It's not the fault of music or video games or even comic books with boobs in them. Fred's point of view is completely self-serving. He's not here to stand up for women. He's just a frustrated little man who lashed out in anger at others over his own failures.
At least it's all backed up by his extensive research on Wikipedia. Exaggerated proportions are a form of symbolism. Same reason Batman is jacked with massive pecs and a 12-pack. We are symbolically portraying power in a visual space, not sexualizing so much as idealizing the human form. Of course, we give our super people super bodies. While mortals come in all shapes and sizes, the gods were fucking jacked. Those are my thoughts, and as you can see, this is actually very personal for me. I love these types of characters. I create them. I've felt a connection to that sexy warrior woman character my entire life. I don't really know why. It's something floating around in my subconscious and it excites me. I think it's very cool. It never drives me to do any kind of violence on people. I think that's a fairly ignorant thing to say. And this isn't the first time that some low IQ meathead tried to score some points by denigrating all of the things I love most. And it definitely won't be the last.
Are you offended by sexy ladies who kick ass?
Why, yes I am. Thank you for asking.
That's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do like my content, please consider sharing it with your friends and subscribing to the channel. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you all real soon in the next video. Peace.
I think they're just searching for things to dislike because they're unhappy with their own art and they see that this is successful, so why not hate on what is successful?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I just personally like drawing sexy girls because I like to see myself as a sexy girl, so I like to embody that in my art. I don't do it for anyone else but myself, so